Right, welcome back. Today we're going to take another look at the book of Judges, continuing on from where we left off. Last time we talked about Othniel, and the next judge after him is a man named Ehud. When we talk about Ehud, we're talking about a man who's called a left-handed man who kills the king of the Moabites, whose name was Eglon, who was called a very fat man. And in fact, he was so fat that the cubit long dagger went all the way in and even around the hilt. So he was extremely fat. And yet he was oppressing Israel. And so Ehud is who God raised up to deliver Israel from this. Well, let's look at this story. The background is that the people that we talked about last time, they had turned to idols and been oppressed by the king of Mesopotamia. Then, after 8 years of that, God raised up Othniel who delivered them. And then they had peace for 40 years. And then Othniel died. So they had been at peace for 40 years because they were serving God during the leadership of Othniel. But when Othniel died, the people turned back to idols. Now, when we talk about today's story, we're going to look at this map again later, but we have here a few different places that we're going to take note of. So, Moab is the important one, especially because they are the ones in charge of oppressing Israel. But they incorporate the Ammonites and the Amalekites in this as well. They join together against Israel. And it will talk about the city of palms, that Moab rules over the city of palms. That's Jericho. We'll take a look at that as we go as well. And then Ehud is a man from Benjamin. So you can see that he was there in the territory around Jericho, and Ephraim is going to be included in the story as well. You see they're just north of Benjamin. So it's that territory of Israel that's going to be especially involved in this persecution and deliverance. All right, well, in Judges chapter 3, in verses 12 through 30, it says, "And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord strengthened Eglon, king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. Then he gathered to himself the people of Ammon and Amalek, went and defeated Israel, and took possession of the city of palms. So the children of Israel served Eglon, king of Moab, 18 years. But when the children of Israel cried out to the Lord raised up a deliverer for them, Ehud, the son of Gera, the Benjamite, a left-handed man. By him the children of Israel sent tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Ehud made himself a dagger. It was double-edged and a cubit in length, and fastened it under his clothes on his right thigh. So he brought the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man. And when he had finished presenting the tribute, he sent away the people who had carried the tribute. But he himself turned back from the stone images that were at Gilgal and said, I have a secret message for you, O king. He said, Keep silence. And all who attended him went out from him. So Ehud came to him. Now he was sitting upstairs in his cool private chamber. Then Ehud said, I have a message from God for you. So he arose from his seat. Then Ehud reached with his left hand, took the dagger from his right thigh, and thrust it into his belly. Even the hilt went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade, for he did not draw the dagger out of his belly, and his entrails came out. Then Ehud went out through the porch and shut the doors of the upper room behind him and locked them. When he had gone out, Eglon's servants came to look, and to their surprise, the doors of the upper room were locked. So they said, "He is probably attending to his needs in the cool chamber." So they waited till they were embarrassed, and still he had not opened the doors of the upper room. Therefore they took the key and opened them, and there was their master fallen dead on the floor. But Ehud had escaped while they delayed, and passed beyond the stone images and escaped to Sierra. And it happened, when he arrived, that he blew the trumpet in the mountains of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mountains, and he led them. Then he said to them, "Follow me, for the Lord has delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand." So they went down after him, seized the fords of the Jordan leading to Moab, and did not allow anyone to cross over. And at that time they killed about 10,000 men of Moab, all stout men of valor. Not a man escaped. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest for 80 years. All right, so that's the story of Ehud. He is someone the Lord raised up to deliver Israel. He is someone who brought the tribute or payment that Moab was demanding from Israel. And yet he used that opportunity as he was close to King Eglon to deliver a message from God. And in this case, that message from God was a dagger in the belly. And so he was able, after killing the king, to lead the army to shutting off the escape of all the Moabite army that was in Israel, and they wiped them out, 10,000 men of them. All right. When we talk about the city of palms, where the king of Moab had taken possession, we read about it in Deuteronomy 34, verse 3. It talks about the south and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, as far as Zoar. And it's called the city of palms in a number of places. It's known that way. There were a lot of palm trees around Jericho. So, of course, Jericho had been destroyed at this time as far as the walled city, but that territory, that land, there were still people around there. And so that it's that area that's still considered the city of palm trees, even at this point in their history. Jericho has not been rebuilt by this time. All right, so you see Jericho there in blue, right underneath where it says Benjamin. That's where Israel crossed over. And remember, they marched around the city 7 days. And then 7 times on the seventh day, they marched around it, and God made the walls fall down, and they completely destroyed everyone in the city. But the king of Moab had taken possession of that area, and that's apparently where they were bringing the tribute to him, was over there. And so they were able to use that opportunity to also kill him, kill the army that was supporting him, and have peace then for 80 years. So, what are some lessons that we can learn from Ehud? Well, one lesson is that being left handed is not a bad thing. There's been times in history where people thought it was satanic or something, it was a curse to be left handed. And they would even try to force people to write with their right hand, tie down their left hand so they'd be forced to use their right hand. And we find in the scriptures that left handed people can use that to an advantage because it's not as normal as being right handed. And in this case, it seems like Ehud used his left handedness to probably escape notice that he had a weapon, because most people would have that on their left thigh so they could reach in with their right hand. And he had it on his right thigh, and he could use his left hand to use his weapon very quickly. He didn't have to change hands or anything. So the king didn't have time to cry out. And we find that secrets can be a deadly thing. So in this case, the secret was a dagger in the belly. And yet the king was very quick to want to know the secret, wasn't he? When he heard there was a secret message, he sent all his people out, even though this message is coming from someone he's been oppressing. It seems like a rather dangerous thing to do. We need to not be so quick to want to learn secrets. And messages from God. This was a message from God that Ehud had for Eglon, but a message from God can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on where we stand with God. If we are in rebellion against God, we're not going to enjoy the message that He has for us. But of course, it can be a good thing if we are on the right side with God. But also, one of the main lessons I think we can get from this story is that when you want to be delivered, kill the entire army that might come after you again. In superhero stories, it seems like most of the time they fight a bad guy and then they leave them alive deliberately. And then they have to fight them again over and over and over again because they refuse to kill the bad guy. Well, in this case, Ehud and the army of Israel did not have that stupid idea. They said if Moab is left, they're going to come after us again. So let's wipe them out right now while we have the opportunity. And so they did. They killed 10,000 soldiers of Moab. There was no army left big enough in Moab to come after them again. And so they had rest for 80 years. They didn't have to fight the Moabites anymore because they wiped them out. Now, as far as militaries go and nations, I'm not too concerned about that today. That's not really anything I have any say over. So I don't have to know how God wants that to be done. But when we talk about in our lives the battles that we fight, we're fighting against sin. We're fighting against the forces of Satan. And so if you win a battle against temptation, well, that's great. But don't just stop there and say, oh, great, I won a battle. Think about, well, how can I destroy the army that is trying to tear me down here? Where are these temptations coming from? Can I get rid of those temptations? What is the source of that? Is it the people that I'm around? Did I resist the pressure from my friends to drink? Well, now I need to cut off those friends, right? I won that battle, but now I need to kill the source of the temptation, not kill my friends, obviously, but cut them off. Where I'm not going to be around them, they're not going to have the opportunity to tempt me with that again. If it's I was interested in this boy or in this girl and they tried to get me to commit fornication and I resisted, well, you may need to cut off that relationship completely, right? Don't give them an opportunity to try again. You need to try to kill the source of the temptation. You don't want to have to keep fighting the same battle over and over again. You want peace for 80 years. So kill the source of your temptations if you can. You may not be able to do that all the time, but if you're able to do that, you know, just destroy it, wipe it out. When you have that victory, don't waste time with allowing the temptations to stay around. Wipe them out. Look for the opportunities to get rid of the things that would drag you down again. All right. So that's what we see with them. They wiped out the army of Moab and had peace for 80 years. In our lives, if you can wipe out the source of your temptations and you're not going to be tempted by those things anymore, how wonderful would that be? How peaceful would that be? Not that you'll never be tempted to sin again, but why continue to fight the same battles over and over again if we don't have to, if we can get rid of those things in our lives that are leading us to those temptations. All right, well, that's the lesson for today. I hope that's helpful for you. Thank you.